back and welcome to another book versus movie video. It has been a little while. The last book versus movie video I did was a book versus movie If Beale Street Could Talk, so I will leave that linked up here in case you missed that one. And I do movie reviews every weekend as well. I will have an Oscars special coming up soon too. So if movies are your thing as well as books, you're in the right place. Now recently, Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany and I listened to the audiobook for Hidden Figures, and then we watched the movie together, in the sense that we watched it at the same time, which is quite a feat given that we are 2 hours time difference apart as well, and we discussed our thoughts on the book, and then we discussed our thoughts on the movie. So hopefully this should be a nice, well thought out video, because I had a week of discussion whilst reading the book, and then the whole way through the movie we were messaging back and forth about our thoughts on the movie as well. So first off, I loved the book. I thought the book was great. Loads and loads of information, loads of background information and facts and figures, which is always good to have in a non-fiction book. Loved the movie, went to see it twice in cinemas, and then I watched it again on a plane as well. And rewatching it was just an absolute pleasure. The feeling of the book, even though it is a non-fiction book, it is obviously a non-fiction book about a big movement and a big change within the career path and the respect of, in some ways, black women and black women in the workplace, black women in science, women in maths, all of those things. And it has a very triumphant feeling about it. It talks about the small steps that continue to be made in order to make this big step towards where we are today, which is by no means perfect, but is better than, say, in the 1950s. And the movie very much has that triumphant feeling about it as well. It's got a very cinematic feeling to it, so everything is kind of glamorous and set to a story for the big screen, for the cinema. But it's got that same feeling and that same feeling of change and triumph and positivity. One of the biggest differences between the book and the movie is the amount that it covers, which is always going to be the case when you have a movie based on a book, especially a book full of information and facts and figures like this one. In terms of the amount that it covers, the book covers a much longer time period, it covers a much bigger group of women, and it covers multiple space missions and multiple mathematician and scientific sites, as well as just the West computing section of the Langley campus. So if you loved the film and you kind of want a little bit more, you want to know what went before and what comes after the film, then you will like the book, because it definitely gives you a lot more background knowledge. One of the things the film does really well is that it covers a lot of the cultural changes happening outside of NASA at the time that the book just covers, as in giving you the facts and giving you the figures through conversations that people are having in the film. So for example, the conversation that Mary has with the Polish engineer about the fact that there'll never be a black female engineer at NASA, and he's like, well, my parents were killed for being Jews in the Holocaust, and now here I am, a Polish guy working at NASA. You know, these things can happen. So that's a really good example of the way they kind of take the cultural temperature of the time and really put it into the conversations they're having. The film gives us the coloured lunchroom and the coloured bathrooms versus the non-coloured lunchroom and bathrooms, and then in the town of Langley we see the different sections of the bus, the different sections of the library, the different water fountains, and then Mary has the issue where she has to go and do some classes and she has to go to a segregated school. And again, they are very much representations of the extra information that you get in the book. And I think it was the little things, if you've read the book, you're kind of almost looking for them in the film. And those little things get dropped in and get done really well. And I think that it's definitely done well, and it's a good thing. One of the things that I found was, I was watching the film and I was like, this is a film about specifically these three, but it's based on a book about all black mathematicians and computers at NASA, female. And so many of these scenes are based around massive groups of men. And it's like, well, you know, the rooms that they're showing were full of groups of white men. And like Catherine Goebel, for example, was the only woman in the room, apart from the secretary. But the book doesn't have that. The book has the fact that it's about the women, and it's about the women are the focus. And so it is slightly disappointing in that a lot of the conversations in the film are going on between two men or groups of men. A lot of the things going on behind closed doors and in powerful places are going on with men, which again, that's what it was at the time. But the fact that it is based on the book that's about this, you know, massive movement and move forward for these women, it would have been nice to have seen a little bit more of the women on the screen rather than having the men in there as well. I get why it had to be done to set the scene in the way that the book doesn't have to set the scene, because it can just tell you, whereas the film has to show you. But yeah, there was that difference, definitely. And then the sort of famous scene in the film where she has to run off to the whole other end of the campus to go to the only coloured ladies' room, again, is very representative of the segregation at the time. And the book covers lots of different examples of the segregation that these women faced and that black people faced at the time anyway. And the book sort of tells you the facts and figures, and again covers a wider time period, so things change quite a lot over the course of the book. Whereas her having to run off to the toilet, particularly the one where she goes to the bathroom and gets covered in rain and then comes back and unleashes this amazing rage at Kevin Costner, again, is very representative of the information that's in the book. So although the film focuses on these three women rather than generations of women, the changes and the facts and the small victories are done well through representation. And the scene in the film where Kevin Costner knocks down the sign for her bathroom obviously isn't in the book, but is a representation of things that happened. And of course is done to make it a more entertaining film, because, you know, people need to have their attention constantly on the screen. So yeah, so there are some differences, definitely, but I think the main difference is the fact that this is just focused on these three women, whereas the book focuses on, like I say, multi-generations of women, which I loved to see. I loved to see the kind of development as it went on between the different generations of women. And the film, we see all three of the women at home with their families. And the book also has those stories of women and their families. There's one about a little boy and his soapbox car and how his mother helps him with it at the same time as doing this massive important work for NASA. And I like the fact that the film also covers those backgrounds. I like the fact that we have the Catherine and Jim storyline, because that is in the book as well. And then I really like Dorothy's story. Dorothy is a very key figure throughout the book. She helps future generations of women, and she herself has had to overcome a lot of struggle, more than we see in the film. And so I like the fact that she gets a focus in the film as this matriarch and a focus as somebody who deserves more and does eventually get some more. I like her interaction with her children, and I like the way she is, yeah, a matriarch or a mother hen to the women that she works with, not just these two women, but all the women in the West Computing wing. And I think they did that really well. I was really glad that they had a focus on her, because they did in the book. So yeah, so there are quite a few differences between the book and the film, but definitely if you enjoyed the film and you want to know more background of these three women, the other women in the West Computing wing, the women that came before them and the women that came after them, what happened in future space missions, what happened leading up to this space mission, then you will definitely enjoy the book. I can highly recommend the audio. And yeah, I loved watching this again, and so making this video gave me a chance to watch this again. It was great. So thank you very much for watching. I will leave on the end screen my playlist of all my book versus movie videos if you have missed any of them, or if you are just coming to this one. I've got loads of them. I love making book versus movie videos on here. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe so that my next video lands in your subscription feed. As I say, I do make film review videos every Sunday as well as book talk on here. And thank you very much for watching. I will see you with my next video soon. Bye.